The Tasmanian Community Fund presents the Breaking Barriers Building Futures podcast, hosted by Sally Darke in conversation with Jo Fearman.
I'm Sally Darke, Chairperson of the Tasmanian Community Fund, and I'm delighted that I have Dr Jo Fearman with us, the new CEO of the Launceston City Mission. Before we have a bit of a chat, we're here in their Frederick Street offices, which may mean there's a little bit of noise, Jo, but we'll see how we go. The Tasmanian Community Fund acknowledges the ancient history and the culture of the Palawa-Pakenham people and their deep and ongoing connection to the land, to the seas, the waterways and the skies of Lutruwita. We pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge and pay respect to all Tasmanian Aboriginal people. Jo, delighted to have you with us today. You've only been a couple of months into the job.
Yeah, absolutely. It is just a couple of months, but it does feel like it's been a long time because I've been a volunteer with City Mission for almost 10 years. So it's wonderful. I'm loving the new role, and we have amazing people at City Mission. I think that's the most important part of this job is it's all about the people, and that's our staff, our volunteers, our clients, and so for me it's an incredible privilege to step into this role and follow in the footsteps of Stephen Brown, who did a wonderful job for such a long time. So
tell us a little bit about your involvement in City Mission and community services work over the past period of time, Jo.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess in thinking about my involvement with community services, I think it goes right back to when I was a child. You know, we as a family, we always had a sense of giving back, and you know, as a kid we did fundraising things for the 40-hour famine, or, you know, we sponsored children, and it was always important to us as a family that we recognise the unique value of each person, and that we use the incredible gift that we have of you know, I guess you don't get to choose where you're born, what family you're born into, and so being blessed to be born in Tasmania to a great family, having that privilege, I suppose, it's really important to me that where we do see disadvantage and in social injustice, that we make a difference. And so that's my motivation, and it's my motivation is informed by my faith, and so that's been part of my life since I was a child, and I guess it's expressed in different ways throughout my life. But over the past 10 years, I've been on the board at City Mission and been really privileged to be able to contribute to the strategic direction and see some of the amazing outcomes that City Mission has achieved over the past 10 years.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about how you're settling in and what you see your role being as the CEO of City Mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess in terms of settling in, I've had such a warm welcome from all of the staff and leadership team, so I'm very grateful for that. And it does feel like, you know, because I have been around for a while, it feels like, you know, a very smooth transition, which has been wonderful. So in terms of, you know, what we do at City Mission and some of our priorities and areas of impact, obviously we're seeing a significant challenge around the cost of living at the moment, and nationally, you know, there's a cost of living crisis that's been happening since about 2022. So it's not just a short-term issue, you know, it's been going for a while, and particularly as we come up to Christmas at the moment, you know, we see more and more people coming to us looking for support just to put food on the table. And actually, you know, we see people that have never accessed our services before are coming to us and saying, we can't afford our groceries, or we can't pay our energy bills, or, you know, we can't put petrol in the car to transport ourselves around. And so that's the very basics that we support people with, and really an important part of what we do is helping people who are in crisis. So we're only seeing that demand increase, and
So they're the really immediate ones. When you look long term, we've been doing a program on governance for social impact, which has very much been looking at the purpose of organisations like ours and what we do. Tell us a little bit about the purpose of City Mission and the number of years, and then what you see the future looking like from a point of view of strategically.
The purpose of City Mission, we were set up 170 years ago, so we have been supporting the community of Launceston and the Northwest Coast now as well for a long time, and really meeting the needs. And it has for a long time been right at the coalface in terms of crisis support, but some of the other areas of impact that we have are around helping people recover from drug and alcohol addiction. We've got a number of services that support people through recovery where they recognise the need to change, that they are ready to take that step. And so our services are residential services in terms of those recovery services. So that's not an easy step, and it's pretty brave for people to take that step, A, to say they have a problem or they are struggling, and B, to move into a residential facility for a period of time. So we see some amazing outcomes where people have had disconnection with family, disconnection with community, a complete loss of trust in the system, a loss of trust in society essentially, and they go through that process of recovery and come out of recovery, and we see people really transform their lives, and that's what we're all about.
That puts a smile on your face, doesn't it, when you
Exactly.
hear those and you see that actually happening. So,
Yeah.
Jo, another thing that puts a smile on my face is the fact that 170 years of the City Mission, and you're the first female CEO of the organisation. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it is a real privilege to be the first female CEO. I think many, many years ago there was another, before they were CEOs and when they were town missionaries, there was another female leader of the organisation.
Right.
And I guess I find that interesting to reflect on, because yes, it's an incredible privilege to be the first female CEO, but we've had so many amazing people leading City Mission for many years. And we all draw on our own skill sets and capabilities, but it's good to see that there is a space for women to contribute in that way, and I'm really pleased to be able to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
And what sort of leadership style will you bring to the role? I think there's about 200 staff now, so it's a large organisation with a large turnover. Tell us a little bit about the leadership style that you'll bring to the organisation.
Yeah, well, I guess my leadership style is a collaborative leadership style, and I think particularly in a community services organisation, it is all about the community, and it is about serving the community, and but we're also about transforming lives, and so we need to be looking to the future. We need to be responding to the issues as they arise and changes in society, and so we need to be future focused. We need to be responding to emerging issues, but we need to make sure that we take the community on that journey, and that it is for the greatest benefit for the most people. So I think in terms of a leadership style, absolutely looking to achieve significant outcomes and transformation in people's lives, but do that very collaboratively and for the benefit of all.
So a couple of the things that the TCF have really found is making a big difference in Tasmania is place-based solutions.
Absolutely.
And also getting systems change. Would you like to make some comment about, first of all, place-based solutions, where you see that working well in regard to the community sector and getting impact?
Yeah, absolutely. I think each community is different. And so what might apply or be very effective in Melbourne is not going to be effective in Launceston, because we have a different cohort, we have different challenges and regional communities experience a different scale, different social interactions, different, geographical challenges, transport issues. In a city, you can easily move around. We don't have the same kind of public transport supports, and our education system is different. So you can't apply a model that works in one place without making it custom built or, purpose built for the community that you're serving. And I think some great examples of that are, it's easy to design a policy in in an office somewhere in Canberra, but if you don't talk to the community and understand that that's, going to work for them, or that they will embrace that, then it's really not going to achieve what you're hoping to. And one of the ways that we do that is through the community development work that we do in the northern suburbs. So we've got a community development officer, Ray Green, who's been
we know Ray,
with City Mission for many years.
Yes.
Yeah, and is well regarded by the community. And the work that we're doing in the northern suburbs through Project North is really about identifying the community's aspirations. There's a need to build community, there's a need to create connection, but rather than taking a top-down approach that says, we've got the solution for you, actually, let's talk to the community and say, how are you going to, how do you see this working for you? What's the best solution for you as a community? So that's community-led and community-driven. And I think that's when you are going to achieve the best outcomes, because people have ownership of it. They have a sense of it being culturally relevant and a sense of it being, they've got the buy-in and they know that it will work for them in that place.
And so, Jo, when we talk about a project like that, which is an exciting one for Launceston, and, as you know, the Tasmanian Community Fund has an emphasis on young people and on breaking barriers in regard to keeping people engaged in learning. What are City Missions seeing out in areas like that with young people? What are the major challenges that young people are experiencing at the moment, particularly around that engagement in the learning space?
Yeah, I think, I guess my perspective coming into this role is that it's really important for us to create safe places for people. And if people are not feeling safe within themselves or within their families or communities, then, access to education is much further down the priority list than just that sense of connection, safety, belonging.
A roof over your head.
Exactly, yeah. So all the challenges that we see around homelessness, cost of living, family breakdown or dysfunction can be significant barriers for people wanting to access or further their education.
And you're doing some really interesting programs in schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to make comment about that? Because that's about those place-based solutions as well, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And so we've got a program for primary-aged children, which is our Inside Out for Kids program, and it's a pre-clinical program. So we don't have psychologists with that one-on-one support for children, but we have people who are trained as teachers and teachers' aides who go into schools at the request of schools and provide some group sessions or some one-on-one sessions to help children understand their emotions. And particularly when children are going through major change in their lives or experiencing grief or loss or some other trauma, having language around what their emotions are, and then having some support to express those emotions in healthy ways helps them to navigate those big changes and those big feelings and come through that stage rather than feeling isolated or a sense that they might have to manage that on their own. And for me, that's, I see that as incredibly valuable because it is early intervention. We know that, a significant amount of adult mental health issues are a result of childhood
Absolutely.
experiences.
Yeah, that's
So
right. It can be tough on kids, can't it?
absolutely.
Tough when you hear what they're facing, and as you say, to have some skills to be able to handle and to help with their own resilience in some of those trauma-informed ways is really important. What would you be looking for, Jo, in regard to systems change as a result of some of those things that you're doing, from place-based? How do you hope to be able to try and nudge the system?
Well, I think that is the big question for us, particularly for the education system. We're seeing schools invite us in, and they need that extra support. Increasingly, it's an increasing demand on teachers to try and support students who are dealing with and navigating their own emotions and, difficulties, and trying to navigate behaviours around that. And so we don't have the answers yet, but certainly see that there is scope to support teachers and the education system they want to achieve education outcomes. And but if students aren't at school, then that's, they're not going to reach those education outcomes. So how do we tailor, how do we improve the system and the work environment for teachers and the support for teachers and students? There's a lot for us to contemplate there in terms of rethinking how we approach that.
Okay, good. And we always have a question that we ask ourselves at the Tasmanian Community Fund and ask those who are looking for funding from us is, if you had $1 million, where would you put it? I mean, one of the questions we asked with the TCF was, over a period of time, if you had $65 million over 10 years, where would you invest it? And that's where obviously education and engagement and breaking down barriers to learning came through. But from your perspective, if you had $1 million, where at the moment do you think you would get the most amount of impact and outcome from a sum of money like that?
Well, it's kind of a nice segue from our conversation about Inside Out for Kids. And I didn't really touch on our youth program that we have as well, which is long-term mentoring for youth that are disengaged and disconnected. And that's the next progression from our Inside Out for Kids program is for primary students, but we also support students who are in high school. But
with mentoring?
Yeah, with mentoring, with life skills, with a sense of a future, helping them try to imagine what their future will be and then develop skills and capabilities to move in that direction. So
navigating some of those challenging times.
Yeah. But the $1 million question.
Yes, the $1 million question.
Well, and I think it would be in our Inside Out for Kids program, because it's not just about the students themselves. We actually support parents to understand and give language to their emotions. So what the students are learning and what the children are learning, the parents are also learning, which means that when children go home to their home environments, there's a shared language, a shared understanding about, how to deal with anxiety and worry and grief, and in an increasingly complex world and environment, there's so much to navigate for children. So having that support at home and parents understanding that
and parents role modelling some of that
exactly
behaviour and some of that language, etc., in tough times.
Indeed. So I think that's supporting children and their parents, families, holistically. That's certainly, we see good outcomes from it, and we think that it, as an early intervention, it could have a lot of benefit for those children as they become adults.
Yeah.
And
the next generation.
Exactly.
And Jo, just on a little bit of a tangent, one of the other emphasis for the Tasmanian Community Fund is on building capacity and capability. And I'd be interested in your thoughts, particularly in regard to the community sector. Anything which you see as being areas where you think we should be working to build capacity?
I think actually it's nice to reflect with you today, Sally, because many years ago I did the Emerging Community Leaders program, and for me that was an excellent opportunity to build my own knowledge and capability and understanding around community leadership, and certainly see the value in that, in identifying cohorts of people who are moving into that leadership space and building their capabilities around that. Obviously, networking and mentorship are incredibly valuable as well, and recognising that you don't do leadership alone, and we all learn from each other, we all build each other up and encourage each other, and there are lots of wonderful things about leadership, but there are challenging things as well. And so being able to have that peer network and being able to identify, pathways to mentorship and helping people at an earlier stage in leadership know who they can talk to and where they can go for support or some, just as a sounding board or to say, these are my strengths, but here are some weaknesses. How do I, build on those? Yeah, really.
I think you were in the first group, weren't you, of the emerging
was.
Community Leaders? And I'm on the road a lot in the car, and as I'm driving down highways, I'm always very proud of hearing those who have been on the programs and what they're doing now and the success they're having, and knowing that they keep in touch with each other. And I think your other point about really understanding that leadership is a journey and that we look for pathways in regard to education, and that things like emerging community leaders are part of that pathway, and there are many others there, and it's about people accessing and also managers taking the opportunity when they're talking with their staff about looking for what those leadership opportunities are out there, and making sure that they're giving them opportunities to be part of those programs, because there's some terrific ones around. And as I said, this is I'm coming towards the end of my 9 years as chairperson of the Tasmanian Community Fund, but I've watched over the 9 years some young people who have gone on to have some really important roles within Tasmania and really making a difference, particularly in the community sector. And Jo, I very much put you down in that area. And I guess what I want to do is, in finishing up, is just to wish you the very, very best as you embark on your role as CEO. As you're following the footsteps of some very good CEOs, and the TCF has had the pleasure of working with the City Mission for the whole 24 years that the Tasmanian Community Fund's been in existence. But the 9 years that I've been chair, there's been a real partnership, and it's been a delight to provide funding to an organisation where we've seen some terrific outcomes as a result of those. So look forward to your continuing success and the fact of the partnership between yourselves and funders like the TCF, and obviously other funders that are out there continuing. So best wishes with it all, and it's been an absolute delight to have a chat with you today.
Well, thank you, Sally. And if I could just tag on the end of there, I actually felt it was such a privilege to do the podcast with you today, because, reflecting on the question about female CEOs and female leadership, I've certainly valued and recognised your leadership in Tasmania, and I think the Tas Community Fund has benefited enormously from your leadership as chair. And
thanks, Jo.
Yeah, from just, if I could be as bold as to speak on behalf of the community sector, I would like to thank you enormously for your contribution. And the Tas Community Fund does such fantastic work and supports incredible projects and programs. And, I suspect that there will be there are big shoes to fill in finding a successor for you. So thank you so much for your contribution across many sectors in Tasmania, and particularly the community sector through Tas Community Fund.
Thanks, Jo.
Yeah.
I think we might leave it there.
Okay.
And it's been a pleasure having a chat with you today.
Thanks, Sally.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Breaking Barriers Building Futures podcast, presented by the Tasmanian Community Fund. The fund seeks to increase community well-being by removing barriers to learning and help Tasmanians to develop, deliver and lead responses to their needs. For more information, go to tascomfund.org.